Good morning, everyone. I know it's been a very, very busy morning. A lot of different themes we started off with, right? I saw a spectrum from patriotism to law drama, religion, spirituality, everything hitting us this morning. And then suddenly I'm going to talk about human and AI. So before I get into this conversation, a show of hands for who you believe that AI is an independent, siloed world in itself. They are parallel themes, which is humanity or human beings and technology in itself. How many of you believe they are parallel themes? Which is a good thing. We are not working in siloed parallel worlds, right? They are not agnostic of each other. They work in tandem, and it's always been that way. I got introduced to the world of computers, I think, when I was in my sixth standard. And the lure to learn, and I don't know if you still remember, these were the DOS prompt black screen computers. You would learn very, very basic coding. But the lure for us as school students was that you could play a very old game, which was called the brick game. So there would be a ball which would go and hit the bricks. That is what we would get to play if we spent 30 minutes in the computer lab to learn computers. That is where my introduction to computers happened. And fast forward where we are today is a very, very thoughtful scaling solution. That's what we look at technology as, right? So when we talk about human and AI collaboration, I think it's inherent, it's inbuilt, right? There is a need for it. And with need, there is also an opportunity for it. For those of you, I mean, if you're curious where I'm coming from, it's my academic background is all mixed, right? So I've done electronics, I've done computer applications, and then I've done psychology, and then now I'm in L&D. So I've been all over the spectrum. And when I did electronics, and this is, I'm talking almost 25 years back, the chips that you see, the nanochips, right? We were taught in electronics to make those chips by hand, creating those electronic circuit boards by hand. Can you imagine a world today where you have to do things by hand? I'm sure it won't work, right? And that's what I'm talking about, opportunity, which is scale. And when we say opportunity, there are three main things that we should focus on. One is the symbiotic relationship between humans and technology. And I'm not using AI per se, because I'm sure fast forward 5 years, there'll be a new world of technology. It could be something different from AI. When I got introduced to artificial intelligence, I think it was in early 2000s. We used to call it machine learning. Now, when I say AI, it's synonymous with generative AI, ChatGPT, right? Or if you explode Grok, maybe that's where we start talking. So I'm not going to fixate on the word AI, but I'm going to use the Uber term called technology, because we will get new things every year. It is changing very, very, very fast, right? So when I say symbiotic, what does it mean? Specific to the world of learning, nobody has time today to sit in classrooms, long drawn education. I know there are students sitting here. Unfortunately, we still have to go through the academia and the curriculum. And trust me, I spent between 2020 and 2024 back-to-back 2 academic degrees. It was exhausting. I was like, is there a fast-forward way to do this? But it is the academia world. But I'll come to that and why it is important. But having said that, there is a symbiotic relationship. Why? Technology enhances my learning, but it also improves my decision making, which allows me to select what do I want to learn, right? If you go onto any learning platform, and I'm not talking just from an organizational perspective, right? LinkedIn, Upgrad, or your world of Byju's, everybody that they give you, they're throwing a bunch of things at you. How do you choose what you want to learn? Right? Anybody been in the software coding world? Software developers? Exposed to it? There's a new programming language every day. And that's the reason I chose not to go into coding. After finishing my computer applications, I was like, I can't study a new language every day. I am not doing this. And I went into insurance and I realized I have to keep learning. So that's where the symbiotic relationship comes in. Enhancement. And what do we say when we say the opportunity is about enhancing? What do we do really well as humans? We evolve. But where are we evolving from? It's the brain, right? Which is, we are learning things, we are becoming creative in our choices. That's the human ability, empathy, right? I can teach systems, robots to be empathetic, but they will only learn what I teach them. But as humans, there are things we observe, we pick, subconsciously we start emulating, right? Have you heard this concept of saying you smile at somebody, they'll smile back at you? Will a robot do that with you? Maybe I can code it to do it, but it may or may not happen. Or it might just smile at any object it verifies as a living being, it might start smiling. That's the limitation, right? So where we are talking about enhancing learning through technology is leveraging technology to identify patterns. It can identify patterns at scale, which we as humans can't do. We have a limited peripheral vision, which is dependent on our exposure to the environment, right? Now, the third one is impact, and this is where organizations really, really have to leverage, because when human and AI collaboration happens, there are studies which already show that there will be 30% more impact in terms of engagement, business results, and ability to deliver results at scale. And when I say scale, what I'm talking about is it's no longer a game of 5 people being able to deliver something, right? The whole mantra about the corporate world today is do more with less. And that's what we're going to talk about, right? So when it comes down to that, what we're talking about is the collaborative intelligence. One is not different from the other. They have to do a handshake to bring things to life. And when I say collaborative intelligence, what we're talking about, leveraging the human strength, empathy. I can't code a system. System can learn empathy, but it's limited. Anybody heard about NLP? Neuro-linguistic programming? I can put in all of that, but can it be empathetic enough? Maybe, maybe not. It's a hit and a miss kind of approach, right? We'll learn from it. The machine will learn the more we give it data. But to give that data, we have to be the input mechanism into the system, right? The second bit is about ethical judgment. Ethics is my favorite topic. The reason being, ethics is a very, very, very gray area. Ethics is never black and white, right? Your definition of ethics, my definition of ethics, trust me, will vary, and it will be a huge spectrum and range. Now, coming into the world of AI, how many of you read about what Grok did? Did anybody read about what happened with Grok? It's one of the versions of AI, right? ChatGPT version, similar generative AI. It started editing pictures, right? Yeah, no, it started undressing pictures on its own. It self-learned it. Ethics. I'm sure there'll be somebody in this world, and I'm not judging anybody, somebody will say, what's wrong with that? And there's somebody who's going to be like, oh my God, what happened, right? So ethics in the world of technology and human world itself is a gray area. How do we encompass that? And we need human judgment for it, because we are still governed by a boundary, laws, judgment, societal rules. So we will bring in some sense to that gray area. Empathy and context. Everything that we do is in a context, right? How do we know how to behave in a situation? It's a context. Can I code unlimited context into a system? It'll take time. It's not going to happen overnight, right? How many of you scroll through Instagram Reels, Shorts, YouTube Shorts? All of you? What happens if you end up spending like even 2 seconds on a video you don't want to watch? What happens after that? Your feed is like overloaded and you go like, what just happened? This is not something I wanted to watch, right? That's where the context dies. You've not fed the context. The system said, you spend 2 seconds, that's the time limit I have in the back end. I'm going to give you more information about this. And you're like, I don't want to see this. But you have to live with it or delete your history and restart all over again, right? Now, what can AI, and when I say AI technology, do? Data analytics, HR analytics, right? It can identify patterns and scale. How do I quickly scale the solution? How do I build a platform which will work? Test it quickly. That is the element that comes from that strength. Pattern recognition, I can't emphasize enough of it. And specifically in industries or sectors, like for example, the whole healthcare industry. Have you read about the work they're doing around breast cancer with AI? right? They are doing pattern recognition for multiple mammograms to predict, which a human radiologist can't predict even with the highest level of experience. The system's able to do. That's a scaling solution. I think somewhere, if I'm not wrong, DeepMind is doing something around generating clean energy, because when electron fission happens, energy is generated. But that energy is so strong, a human can't measure it. You'll burn. So systems are doing that for us. So those are places where we can use that. And what will it give us? Higher efficiency, higher productivity. It's also going to give us engaged and empowered workers. And why do I say engaged and empowered workers is where it comes down to saying, what can I give to my workforce, right? What can I give to my students? A lot of sectors, I mean, again, this is not an exhaustive list in terms of sectors where we have those use cases. But obviously, education, healthcare, hospitality. I mean, they are experimenting in some parts of Asia, right, where you have bots who come and deliver your food. You have bots who do some of those work. And obviously, there's a very interesting experiment that was done, I think, in MIT or Stanford, using machine learning and AI, where they built a very basic robot. And when I say robot, it's not what you see on the television, the fancy models, right? It was a very small robotic unit with 4 legs. And they coded it to learn how to walk, run, and that's all it did. What the scientists did was they broke one of the leg of that robot. But it was coded to learn to walk. So it learned how to walk with 3 legs. And that's the scale of pattern recognition we are talking about, right? So how does that then come into the healthcare industry? How do we make bionic body organs to support people with limited abilities, right? Now that's innovation, that's technology. How do we use it? I think the biggest use case for me from an organization business standpoint, and while I'm in L&D, I was on the other side of the table. I was a business leader myself, and we all have a pet peeve as business leaders, right? L&D loses money. It's investment with no return. Nobody knows how to measure learning and development initiatives. There's this whole argument about you take people off production. And in the business world, it's not about sales. It's not about the machine production line. Anybody who's at a desk and you're being paid by the hour. The moment you're not doing what you're supposed to do, it's loss of money. So for the business leaders at the top, when they do their balance sheets, we call it P&L, profit and loss, or operational expenses, OPEX, whatever word you use, L&D is always on the side where it's losing. Because you take people off production, you're losing that part of the business. You're paying to do development, which means a lot of money is going in. And then you ask, what did you do with all of this? There is no answer. So for me, the biggest game changer that I see AI can do, and a lot of us in L&D are looking forward to, is learning in the flow of work, which means I don't have to move away from my desk. Can I learn on the go? And that's the best learning, right? There are lots of theories, and adult learning theory in itself talks about adults learn by doing. So if I can use technology to give you that, then I'm able to change things as an organizational context because I'm bringing agility into learning. While we have very, very wonderful theories about learning and development, one of the things we don't acknowledge is L&D approaches are still very old school. We are not talking the modern ways of learning, right? I mean, all of us believe that with this disruption and change, we need to bring in resilience. I'm sure if you ask any L&D expert, we don't have a right answer on how do we build resilience, right? Even I don't know. I mean, if you ask me, I'll say my life experiences taught me resilience. No school, no academia, nothing taught me resilience. But today's generation needs resilience like their next breath. They are undergoing extreme levels of disruption. How do we help them? And imagine they are coming into the corporate world where they face disruption every day. There is nothing called job security anymore. What you've learned is redundant by the time you get a job. Can you imagine the overwhelming emotions they go through? Who's going to help them? We need something there, right? And that's the bridge technology can build for us. Cross-functional collaboration. Most organizations take pride, we don't work in silos. But the moment you talk about projects, You talk about the work being done, one business unit versus the other. They are constantly in conflict. But technology can help you, right? An organization's failure point is when your right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. And it is very common. Even in the private sector, which is so focused on business results, I have seen it happen across the board. Very few organizations in my work experience I've seen do that really well. And conflicts. Most of them don't do it because of conflicts, right? And avoiding that. Why? I have a technology platform which can show me the big picture, which can help me understand the big picture, right? And strategy is about the big picture. Strategy fails because of lack of execution. Why lack of execution? I can't relate to the big picture outside of my little box that I live in the business unit, right? And that's the game changer for organizations in the organizational context. But you talk education, you talk, I think healthcare has impressed me. I was watching some random fiction drama. I'm not a very drama person, but I got hooked onto this because in that whole thing, they had created a mechanism, a machine, which using AI could help them simulate a very complex surgery. So in the drama, the surgery was about conjoined Siamese twins, 6-month-old babies, and one was using the heart and the blood supply of the other twin. It's a very, very complex surgery. So they used the simulation to check what's the success ratio, and they kept practicing on that simulation till they hit 94% confidence levels to make sure that they say, okay, can we go ahead and now try it? Can you imagine the change that it would make, right? We are not gods, but we are not saying technology is going to give us a 100% answer. But that statistical world of saying 95% confidence is a good level to start with, right? And I mean, aviation has always been there where it's used technology. How do we make things better for ourselves? By leveraging technology. But to do all of this, are we ready? That's the big question, right? When I start talking AI to people, and all I hear is about the generative AI, and I think now people are talking agentic AI. What we have to understand is technology has been always there. Like I said, I studied artificial intelligence as a subject paper in my academics in early 2000s. So it's been there forever. But that was machine learning. Machine learning requires you to learn to code. But thankfully to AI, you don't need coding language skills anymore. There are open source tools that help you code through AI. So that limitation is now gone. But can we think beyond that, right? And which means, as organizations, do we have the readiness to take on that disruption? And this is where L&D and technology have to shake hands very, very closely. Academics and AI and technology has to shake hands. I mean, I think I was recently speaking with an Irish, Dublin-based global sales organization, and we were chatting about it. It's a podcast. You can find it through LinkedIn, which was about the gaps between academics and the real world, right? And that's not just about learning technology skills. The readiness is, the first part is the learning. But what is important, which no system will replicate? Ability to solve problems. We call it critical thinking. ChatGPT is not going to teach you critical thinking. Problem solving has to be learned, which means you need to have that mindset to say, I am going to leverage technology as a tool. But who's me? My brain. Remember, the A in AI is artificial intelligence. The intelligence is you. That cannot go away, right? And sometimes we get so carried away, right? And that's where, as organizations, we need readiness. The first thing, making sure that we have the right digital skills. And I'm going to talk a lot from an organizational context because, I mean, obviously academics, there are some bits and pieces that will come in, and I'm happy to talk offline. But probably for this conversation, predominantly from a skills perspective, anything to do with technology is an investment for a business, an organization. Infrastructure costs are very, very high. And for some of you who have not thought about it, the moment I need AI, I need something to store data. I need data servers. Data servers are very expensive, cost space, everything. Electricity it consumes is huge. If I give my data server to a third party, I have data privacy issues, right? Depending on which country the server is sitting, I might have geopolitical issues. So many things to consider. So, are we ready? And technology is not in silos, which means if I am an L&D professional, but if I don't understand what business I'm supporting, I might have a lot of AI expertise as a learning professional, but I can't support my business. So you need cross-functional skill sets. In a business world, what is your organization focused on? What are their priorities? Connect the dots. What is, the famous word is the use case, is what we call it. Sit down with your business and say, what is the use case to leverage technology? Is it because the whole world is doing this? Is this a hype? Is this a need? And to weed that out is very important. Otherwise, you might have the best platforms available in the world, but you will not be able to show return on investment. And the failure will come onto the heads of whoever said, let's do this change, because nobody's adopting it, nobody's using it. And the reason is not because the tool or the technology is not good. The reason is we didn't identify the right use case, as we say, right? Most organizations have said, oh, let's have Copilot. Great, but what's the use case for Copilot? Is it because your team spend a lot of time on making PowerPoint presentations, writing documents, I want to automate that? Or is it because everybody's on that bandwagon, right? So think about that and then decide on ethically as an organization, what is our stance in terms of what we want to do, right? So this is a sample framework. There is somebody who's done a research on the framework evaluation. It's a very good tool. You can find it on, I think, ResearchGate. If I'm not wrong, you'll find this paper which talks about human AI collaboration frameworks, what kind of lens to apply, what questions to ask if you want to deploy this kind of infrastructure within your organization, and it could be any field, any sector. It's not very specific. And the paper is very interesting for those of you who are interested because it very clearly articulates that for the same technology, the use case and the framework evaluation will differ based on the sector, whether it's healthcare, retail, education. The same framework starts shifting and how you measure and what you measure, right? So in summary, there are challenges when we talk about technology adoption. The biggest one being ethical considerations. Equity, we all talk about equity. Equal opportunity may happen, there is potential, but it can also become very, very quickly skewed. Who has the money will find the sources. The others may get left out. There is bias in data sources. Remember, with technology and specifically AI, garbage in, garbage out. Because what you put in as data source is what it's going to learn from it, right? Governance, transparency, learning, design, delivery, all of these are challenges because it's very, very cost heavy. It'll take time to optimize. But my benefits overrun the challenges. So I would recommend everybody to go back and look at your own organizations or the realm where you operate and say, what's my use case? How do I bring it to life? Does it make sense? Or can I at least conceptualize what it means in my world so that at some point I'm ready to go back to the implementation phase when it needs to be? Readiness is important, right? So, in conclusion, what I would like to say is embrace to revolutionize. Don't forget the oversight mechanisms, which is about ethics and equity, but make sure it is about personalized learning, collaborative future. Most importantly, what's important for you and the organizations that you work in. Technology is here to stay. There's going to be new technologies that are going to come in. I'm sure 5 years later, if I meet all of you, we'll be talking about something else, which might not be called artificial intelligence. There might be some fancy name, or we might be talking about data servers on Mars, thanks to Musk. But what I would recommend all of you is, don't hold yourself back. Don't be afraid of that revolution. Because the more you hold back, you'll stop learning, which means we stop evolving. And when we stop evolving, Charles Darwin somewhere is very happy in his grave. Evolution continues, right? Whether it's technology or human life, or any living organism. So on that note, thank you very much.